we got a pretty dope show ahead. We talked UFC 307, pretty dope event in my opinion. Based on our expectations being low, I think it exceeded expectations in some areas. But we bring on Leo Cooper from Leo Cooper MMA. Definitely blessed to have him pop through. And then also we have crossover MMA come through. He actually came to the crib. So we actually got an in-person podcast on that one. And the audio was a little wild because it was kind of last minute as far as us putting it together. But, we did a little something for y'all. So if you haven't subscribed to them or to us, make sure you do that. And you make sure that you share this out to other people who you think might be interested in the show and the things that we talk about. But let's get into it. So I got my boy Leo on here, Leo Cooper MMA. If y'all don't know, I'm sure you know. If you haven't subscribed, you should subscribe. It doesn't make sense if you're watching mine, you should be watching his. You know what I'm saying? So, but I wanted to dig into the card. What we just saw, UFC 307. So first question is kind of a overarching question, like about the event. Like after seeing what we saw at the Sphere and hearing kind of what Dana was saying is like, oh, we're going to take some of that stuff that we did at the Sphere and apply that to the next events or whatever. And now, we're after at 307. Like, what are your thoughts overall about the card? And, kind of visually, was it a letdown? Was it just kind of what we expected? Like, what did you think about that?
I mean, to be honest with you, it was never going to be a card. Doesn't matter who you put as the main event or how stacked the main card was or even the prelims. It wouldn't have really mattered because you set the expectations and the bar that high with the Sphere card, which I think blew a lot of people's initially expectations out of the water. So when you have an event immediately following up with that, it's never gonna excite people the same way. I think the UFC knew that going in, hence why they just put Pereira at the top of the card and said, because he's going to sell. He's the UFC's biggest star right now. Star power is for the most part faded. He doesn't have the same reputation he once had. Pereira is their poster boy. I think there's pretty clear now, with his activity, his character, the way he fights. The people who don't watch the UFC on a regular basis know who he is. And I think that's the mark of a big star. And that's why they put him at the top of the card. And I actually made this point when I was doing my podcast the other week. I said, Conor McGregor in particular, he had a certain level of star power at his peak and still does now, where they can afford to use an entire pay-per-view and just put him at the top, and the rest of the card can be relatively subpar in comparison to a normal pay-per-view, purely on the fact that they know it's going to sell. They know it will do well because McGregor does all the heavy lifting. I think Pereira's at the point where he does the same thing, because if you look at the quality-wise, in terms of name value, obviously as hardcore fans, we probably are excited for a lot of these matchups, but for anyone who's probably a lesser so of a fan, they won't know who half these names are. True. And there's no shame in that. But that just proves my point, I think, that they know the value Pereira has in putting him as a main event. And I'm not actually sure what the numbers were in terms of pay-per-view sales or if they've been disclosed at all, but it wouldn't surprise me if they've done pretty well, even in comparison to other well-stacked pay-per-views in the last few months. But I thought it was a fun card, at least on paper. I'm not going to sit here and say I was very excited for it, but the fact Pereira was headlining, I mean, I'm not going to miss that. Let's be real. He's one of the most exciting fighters in the sport right now.
That's true. He's super exciting. And that fight in itself, was just amazing. I've been in your chat and I've been in other chats and on other people's channels and stuff. And I've been kind of not necessarily carrying the Rountree flag, but I was just saying that
I'm with you.
I was like, this is going to be a lot more interesting than y'all think it will be. Like, he's not trash. And he went in there, and for me, he proved that. He proved that he's not trash. But what are your thoughts on Rountree after, obviously in a losing effort, but after that fight, what are your thoughts on him?
I mean, I'm on the same wavelength as you. I mean, for me, I thought Rountree would probably have some success, but get clipped early because Pereira just is that dangerous. But when I didn't even realize this, that the fight was in Salt Lake City, which the last couple of events we've seen there in terms of pay-per-views have, it's been a huge difference maker in terms of the way fights have played out. Obviously, you look to, Leon versus Usman 2, UFC 278. where Leon really dominated in that first round. And as I predicted he would, but then you saw him start to fade because he wasn't accustomed to the altitude where Usman was. And, a further reflection of that is when they had the trilogy fight, Leon fought at home turf, at sea level, and he looked like a completely different fighter in there. Looked really good over 5 rounds. His cardio held up. And Rock was the co-main event on that card too at 278, and it very much affected him. So it shows you how big of a difference it can make. And Pereira was also a victim of that, if you want to call it, at 291 when he fought Jan Blachowicz. That was the only time, I think, in recent memory where we haven't seen him finish his opponent because of that cardio. So when I realized that this event at 307 against Rountree was altitude, my feelings towards it started to change, as if that Pereira's punching power might start to fade later on. And we didn't end up seeing that. And if anything, it was actually towards Rountree that was the case. Rountree really started to fade at the end of that third round and then going into the fourth, of course. But I thought the fight would be, when I realized it was at Salt Lake City, there was a lot more unanswered questions for me in fight week. I was a lot less confident with my pick of picking Pereira. And also, I'm a huge Rountree fan anyway. So there was that little bit of hope that maybe he could get it done. And for me, he was 2 rounds up and got that knockdown in the second round. I started to believe. But yeah, of course, the tide shifted and Pereira does what Pereira does.
Yeah, like going into that fourth round. I mean, obviously, during the third round, like you said, he started to fade. And you could kind of see, like, okay, I don't know if unless you come out with just a second win in that fourth round, like, I don't know if it's going to happen.
I was hoping for it.
I was like, man, because lightning strike and they just end the fight at 3 rounds. We just go through the scorecards.
Yeah, I wish, man. I wish. But the thing is, you got to, even with that argument, though, they're going to fight a completely different way if it was a 3-round fight. I know we're talking in hypotheticals, but we can dream, right? We can dream. But I mean, you're right, though. What you said, he did prove a lot of people wrong. I think a lot of people were doubting his abilities. Like, wow, you finished Anthony Smith. Great job. Johnny Walker knocked you out, so that means you're not very good. But, people never learn that MMA math does not work. No two fights are the same. Michael Bisping said that long ago before he knocked out Luke Rockhold in their second fight. And I think we keep seeing that being the case. And obviously, we have to reiterate that Rountree didn't get the win, but he challenged Poatan, I think, more so than anyone has in recent memory. And I think that's an achievement in itself.
It is. It is. I mean, to fight somebody who is arguably the pound for pound number one, who I think actually now should be the pound for pound number one, and take them. I mean, he hurt him. He dropped him. It wasn't a clean drop where he went, on his back, but he dropped him and he landed a massive head kick, which is perfect for that area. That's what happens, Salt Lake City, head kick city.
They like it.
So it could have been something magical, but like after this, now I feel like people have to look at Rountree differently. You have to take him seriously in the top 5. And I wonder where they're going to rank him, if they're going to even move him at this point. I mean, I feel like you should. Like you kind of have to move him up, but they probably won't because, they do weird shit with the rankings. But I mean, him against Jamal Hill now is a far more interesting fight. More interesting. So did you see Jamal Hill doing the whole yawning after the fight?
Yeah, that was part of the inspiration I've got for doing the Pereira video I'm going to start working on this week. There was that Jamal Hill clip of him doing the yawning thing. And I really wanted to go in depth and dissect the victims of Pereira. Specifically, that's the kind of working title, but you get where I'm coming from. And the psyche of these guys. And Jamal Hill was, for me, the most interesting of that lot of the men on Pereira's sort of hit list, because he just refuses to accept the reality that he's in, that he lost pretty much fair and square. And I think he'd probably lose again. But as you said, the Rountree fight, very, very, opens up a lot more questions, as you said, with that performance. Rountree proving a lot of people wrong with how he did against Alex. And I initially thought it would be a tough matchup for him against Hill before this fight. Yeah. I still think it is, stylistically. But, in a lot of ways, Hill and Pereira are very similar. Because of the way they use their range and their reach. So that is an interesting fight, regardless. I couldn't sit here and pick you a winner with any sort of confidence, but it's one I'm excited for, and I hope we get. And it's a logical matchup for me. It makes sense.
Yeah, that's the one I want to see next for sure. So speaking on going down the card a little bit, I'll talk about Kayla first. So in Kayla's fight against Ketlin Vieira, she gets the win, of course, but I left that fight thinking very differently about Kayla than I did before. So, like, after watching what she did or what she didn't do against Ketlen Vieira. Like, what were your thoughts on Kayla Harrison?
For me, I'm more on the opposite end of the spectrum there. I don't think my opinions really changed much. I think when you get fighters who have such esteemed backgrounds coming into the UFC, they have a huge reputation, a lot of pedigree in various areas of combat sports. They have a lot, the weight of expectations on them is huge, right, to deliver. And you see how dominant these people are. I think Bo Nickel was probably a really good example of that, maybe not
Yeah.
with judo, but with his wrestling. And we saw how dominant his early performances were on the Contender Series and with his debut. Everyone's like, this guy's unstoppable. He was knocking people out straight away or submitting them like it was nothing. And then he had a bit of a slower performance against Cody Brundage. And you had a lot of people going, oh, he's maybe not that good. I don't think it's a case of that. It's just the higher up you get, particularly within the UFC, you're going to face tough competition. That's just how it is. You're going to face durable opponents who are willing to go in there and stand with you and sustain what you're going to bring. And it's not realistic to visualize, unless you're Tom Aspinall, these people, knocking them out within a minute every fight. It just doesn't tend to happen, particularly at the lower weight classes. So, for me, that's not sustainable. And Kayla is, I think, a good example of that. Yes, her performance probably wasn't the most exciting, but for me, she did what she needed to do. She followed the game plan. And you also got to remember how tough just making that fight actually is for her, because that cut to bantamweight is something she's never really done in her career until she's joined the UFC. It is brutal for her. So for her, I'm sure that's half of the fight. The performance in itself is, that's just the last step. And for me, she did what she needed to do. She fought a smart fight. And I don't, for me, there's not much to say in terms of, I don't think she lost any stock. I don't think she's lost much hype. I do stand by my point. I think she will be the bantamweight champion of the world. I think she would make Julianna Peña, or who I thought would have been Raquel Pennington, easy work, in my opinion. So for me, it doesn't change how I feel about her abilities or where I think she's going in this sport. And for me, she's the next in line, without a doubt.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that when I think that about Kayla Harrison, and the reason that I say that I think of her differently is because I thought that the gap was bigger. I still think that she's better than anybody else in the division, but I just thought the gap was bigger. And credit to Ketlen Vieira for showing that she's legit as well. She's been ranked number 2 for seems like forever, and she showed that she belongs there. And I kind of saw a path to victory against Harrison that I didn't see before. Not to say that Juliana or Raquel could have done it, especially after what I just saw. But
Yeah.
I do think that the gap is a little bit smaller, which actually brought up something else. I saw Don Davis, the president of PFL Tour, whatever you call it.
Yes,
promotion.
I think I know where you're going with this.
You know what I'm saying? He brought up if they did a 4-woman tournament with Larissa Pacheco, Cyborg, and Juliana and Raquel, who would win? And of course, he left Kayla out of it a little bit. But if you throw Kayla in there, it still gets a little bit interesting. But do you think that they actually have a better roster of female fighters than the UFC does, specifically bantamweight? Because I know that Larissa
it's an interesting question,
is
actually.
technically a featherweight, and so is Cyborg. But
yeah,
if they could
it's a
finagle a
tough
way
one,
to meet
isn't
in the
it?
middle.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that big question between those two weight classes. I mean, the UFC featherweight has always been a bit of a running joke. In fact, I don't think it's even officially recognized anymore since Amanda Nunes retired. So it really just seems to be a unique thing right now within the PFL. So by that definition, I'd go yes. But if we're talking bantamweight, no. I mean, you got to look at the depth of the roster the UFC has. And obviously, there's a lot of questions around the quality of women's MMA and the standard, going down the rankings. Because I do think the top fighters are very good. But we're not at that point where I feel like the women's sport as a whole is still in its infancy. I mean, even the UFC and MMA as a whole is very new as a whole. So I don't think, there's not really much to argue there. I think we're going to see the development of the women's game in particular come on leaps and bounds over the next 10, 20 years. So really, we're at the start of it, I think, if you look on a grander scale. But in terms of who's got a better roster, I have to go with the UFC, 100%.
Yeah. I don't think that the PFL leads in any category.
They don't do enough.
But
I like what PFL they do. I do like what the PFL are doing in particular. I've always appreciated what they're doing, but they don't do a very good job of marketing their fighters, and I think that's a big problem that a lot of the smaller promotions tend to fail with. Is they do a pretty bad job. Saying that, but they did that promo with Ngannou, which was pretty cool, straight out of a boxing promo, which I definitely appreciated. So excited to
Yeah.
see that for sure. I'll definitely be tuning into that.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch
I'm
that.
optimistic. Yeah, I mean, the more promotions doing better is that can challenge and contest with the UFC if that ever happens in the future. I'm all for that, 100%.
Yeah, no, and you spot on as far as like the way that they don't market their fighters. Like everybody knows who Francis is. They don't need to do as much work kind of publicizing that, but they do need to really push out the threat of who Fajeda is and what he can do. I mean, besides him just being a big dude, people don't know who he is. So like they should have done, or they could have done a better job of getting that out. But as usual, I don't know what they're banking on. I don't know where they put their money as far as marketing, but it ain't in the right place when it comes to that. It ain't.
Yeah, I mean, you're always going to have a tricky job with that, though, because the UFC have such a domination. I always make the analogy, they're literally like the Apple, like in terms of the domination Apple have over the tech market. They're like that, but with combat sports. You can't really rival them. I mean, there's a reason their branding is so effective that people who don't watch the sport, they call it UFC, not
That's
mixed
true.
martial arts. That's how effective they are. So, to even break in and challenge the UFC at all as a rival promotion is near impossible. So, yeah, it's a losing battle, to be honest with you. I don't envy the job. The guys at the top of PFL and Bellator, etc., and Ryzen on One, they all have tough challenges with that because the UFC have such a grip on the market. But again, I'm forever the optimist. I hope we see some improvements.
Yeah, it would be great. I mean, competition is going to make the UFC better too. So, yeah, I wish that were the case, but I don't see it. I don't see it happening.
Yeah, me neither. But listen, we can dream, right? We can dream.
Yeah.
Competition's good. It's what we need. Otherwise, nothing will change. That's the UFC will be content doing what they're going to do because they can, and no one's going to rival that. So hopefully, whatever, even if it's a very small chance, we see something like that in the future. But
yeah,
who knows? Probably not.
Probably not. So the last question, I'll get you out of here on this one, is about the Raquel Pennington Julianna Peña fight. So really flat out, like, two questions. Did Rocky get robbed? Secondly, do you think that Julianna winning or being the champ, I'll put winning in quotations, winning, do you think that that's better for the division?
I'll answer the latter one first. I think for me, it's a lesser of two evils, right? Because you're going to have one or two people walking out there as the champ. It's either Raquel or it's Julianna. And if you want to ask me who's a better champion, who's going to sell more pay-per-views, even if it's not a huge amount, who's going to sell more, who's more exciting on the microphone, who pisses more people off, it's Julianna Peña. She plays the villain role very well. She's very good at doing that. And she's got on the wrong side of a lot of people over the last couple of years since that she won that belt initially against Amanda Nunes in the upset and subsequently lost it again. She's done a good job of playing that role. I think quite, I wouldn't say authentically, but if you draw comparisons to like Colby Covington, I think you take the good elements of what Colby does with his trash talk. And I think Julianna takes a lot of that and she does well with it. And there's a reason people don't like her. That means she's doing it right. Dana White has said it before, not word for word, but any publicity is good publicity in this game. You don't want to be a Bilal Muhammad, you want to be on either side of the spectrum, not right in the middle. So I can't fault her for doing what she does. In terms of the fight result, though, I had Pennington winning it 3-2, but I prefer not to use the word robbery because for me, it was a fairly difficult fight to score. I think the first round was really the contentious one. I think the other 4 and 5 championship rounds very much going to Rocky and 2-3 to Julianna. But it was a close fight. I can't fault the decision. I definitely had Pennington, and I was a little bit annoyed to see her not get the belt, especially with that knockdown. I thought she really grew into that fight as it went on.
Yeah.
But I'm not mad about it. And to be honest with you, I think if we look at who's coming next, whether it's Amanda Nunes for a trilogy fight, you never know, or it is Kayla Harrison, I think it's only going one way. So, I can't be mad about it.
Yeah, I mean, we already know that whoever's holding the belt, no matter who won, is just holding on to it for the next person because they're not going to beat whoever it is unless it's somebody that's not named Kayla Harrison or Amanda Nunes, which hopefully it's not Amanda.
I'll actually throw a third one at you there. I mean, for me, for my own personal sort of gratification, I'd love to see Valentina Shevchenko challenging for the bantamweight belt. Becoming a two-weight champion. That's something I've always longed for. She's one of my favorite fighters, has been for a long time. And I think not getting that Nunes trilogy fight was one of the worst things the MMA space. We missed it, man. So that would be something I'd like to see. Maybe we get Nunes coming out of retirement, beating Peña in the trilogy, and I'm sure Kayla Harrison would have to get a shot within there somewhere before Shevchenko.
Yeah.
But maybe in a year or two, thing is they're not getting any younger. That's the problem. You know,
Yeah.
I said this the other day. We're releasing the first crop of the top women's fighters reach the end of their career and seeing the effects on that. So Shevchenko and Nunes are probably obviously the two. They've dominated the women's space for years, and now they're winding down their careers. So it almost feels like too little, too late. So maybe we just get it as a one-off, even if it's without the belt. I want to see them go against each other. I'm not too bothered about the belt. I think skill for skill, they're the two best by a mile, and they probably will be forever. I mean, Shevchenko's got 8 title defenses, and Nunes not far off that as well, and also a 2-weight champion. So they're levels above everyone else. So I think it's a matchup we need to see for the third time, and I hope we get it with or without the belt. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So real quick, this is not a question that I had, but it's a question I have now.
Shoot, man.
Who's your top 5 female fighters of all time?
Okay. Is this just in the UFC, or are we going?
Nah. Period.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I think I can answer that. I mean, for me, I'm a little bit biased, but I have to go Shevchenko number 1. She's got the most title defenses in women's history. So for me, that is just, you know, how dominant she was at the time, and also winning the belt back in the way she did. I didn't expect to do it. I actually picked Grasso to beat her at UFC, not Che. I thought Shevchenko's age would really be a factor. I thought Grasso is really coming to her own, but I'm glad she proved me wrong. I'm very glad about that. So, and that takes a skill. That's the difficult thing to do, is claiming the belt back is a lot harder than just winning it. So, because you've got to climb that mountain again. That's a difficult challenge mentally and physically. So for me, she's number 1. Nunes has to be number 2. To be honest with you, you can interchange both of them. They are the 2 best by a mile, as I said. You know, the greats. They're the greats for a reason. In terms of pure ability and what they did for the women's sport, it's tough, man. Cyborg maybe Cyborg at number 3. If we're talking in terms of domination and just raw power, you know, I don't think there's few better than her, really, to be honest with you. It's tough. And I might get flack for this, but I feel like I have to put Ronda Rousey at number 4. I got no shame in admitting that. Listen, regardless of how she took her losses and the things she said since she left the sport and the way she did it, I don't think you can deny for the time what she did, you know, and how good she was. Obviously, the sport has evolved leaps and bounds then, and the standard has gone up in terms of the women's game. But, you know, she fought at that time. So you got to judge her for the period in which she was fighting. And for that period she was fighting, she was dominant. She's Dana White's favorite fighter. She has, I think, 6 title defenses. And there's a reason, as I said, she's Dana White's favorite fighter, because she knew how to run a good promo. She was the promoter's dream, essentially. You know, everything good on the mic, good in the cage, right? That's all you need, really. And she really set the bar along with Conor McGregor. So if we're talking about influence as well as fighting ability, I think she has to be up there at number 4. And number 5, tricky one. Zhang Wei Li, I think, is a fair shot. Oh, Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Take that back. Joanna Jędrzejczyk's got to be in there. I might have to swap her with Cyborg, actually. yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, Jędrzejczyk at 3rd, Rousey at 4th, and then Cyborg at 5th. I think that's a pretty fair list. And then Zhang Wei Li probably just hiding outside of that. That's an honorable mention.
No, that's not a bad list. That's not a bad list. I would have gone a little bit different, but not much different.
Hit me with it. Well, just quick fire. Right. I want to hear it.
So quick. I got Amanda at number 1.
Yeah, that's fair.
I got Cyborg at number 2. I got Valentina at number 3. This is the tough part, is 4 and 5, because I got it between 3 people, really. 4 people. So I'm thinking of Ronda, of course, and I'm thinking of Joanna. I'm thinking of Zhang Wei Li, and I'm thinking of Rose Namajunas.
Yeah, I was waiting for that.
So, because, you know, Rose did beat Joanna twice, and she beat Zhang Wei Li.
And Zhang Wei Li, yeah, twice as well. So yeah, fair point.
Twice.
But equally, she didn't sustain that title run, so I don't know.
That's very true. That's very true. Yeah. And that's what makes it a conversation. But I'm gonna go with my bias. I'm gonna put Rose.
Yeah, go for it. That's what it's for.
4, and then I'm gonna go with Zhang Wei Li. I have Joanna on the outside looking in. That's tough.
I don't know about that. Yes, it does get tough though. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I feel that.
That's tough.
Definitely
cool.
Tough.
Man, I appreciate you jumping on, dude.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Before we jump off, is there anything that you want to let people know is coming down the pipe for you?
More cool stuff. More cool videos on the main channel. Hopefully more on my games channel where I just talk about games. Not enough people checking that out. I need more people looking at that. But either way, yeah, I'm just making good stuff and trying to keep leveling up. You can check it out. Leo Cooper MMA, YouTube, Instagram, the works, all of it.
Cool. Appreciate you, bro.
All good, man.
So we have a question for you guys. We've been taking a look at the analytics, and here's what we want to know. Why you not subscribed? How you gonna watch and you not subscribed?
It makes no sense.
What are you doing out here?
Put your life together and subscribe. Come on.
What else you doing with your life, huh?
Man, y'all don't know how hard this was. So yeah, like this is unexpected, but it's a great surprise, really. So me, crossover, we got to actually do something in person. You know what I'm saying? So it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. I actually sent him a message today about doing some content, like talking about UFC 307 and, you know, his boy and all that. But he was actually on his way to Dallas, and so, you know, we got to actually get together and do some content. So I'm pretty happy about it myself.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. It's crazy how things happen.
For sure. So anybody that's not subscribed to him, which I don't know how you would listen to my stuff and not be subscribed to him, but make sure y'all do that. You know, I'm sure at some point we'll probably do some more live chats too, because you know, people are asking about the Marshawn Snoop podcast.
Especially a week every time.
It's crazy. And then y'all, so he walked in the house like I am of a normal height person. You know what I'm saying? I'm a regular person. He walked in the house and his head all on the ceiling. He was like, "Hey, what's up, dog?" But no, man, I really appreciate you stopping through for sure. So talking about 307, I wasn't even gonna leave with this, but I feel like I have to. Obviously your boy won, Alex Pereira won, but what do you think about Khalil Rountree after seeing him in this fight do what he did?
So going into the fight, like I knew it was a day.
Mm-hmm.
The way their styles matched, make for an exciting. I was telling people I was watching the fight with that I thought Khalil was going to be very dangerous the first 2 rounds, and his power was going to take Alex a little bit of time to get adjusted to it. But then I was like, the altitude, don't slow down a little bit. The lead leg kicks will also help in slowing it down. But ultimately, I think that's what ended up happening. Once he slowed down and he was a little more stationary, and Alex started to touch a little bit more with the jab, it's pretty much got everything, got the ball rolling. Then we got to see Alex starting to slip these punches. It was beautiful.
Yeah, like I think the way that he systematically broke him down, I think they said that in the commentary too about him. That's kind of the way that he operates. And normally it is from the leg kicks up, but this time showed like a different wrinkle to his game. He's got the jab. He can break you down from the jab and do what he has to do there. And Khalil, to his point, like he used his speed and he was able to get in, and he dropped him. He dropped him, and he landed a big head kick.
Yeah, he did. I'm not gonna lie. I was there. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm stressed. But it was a really.
It really was. I mean,
He totally saved the card. I don't even think like Dana White is like being competitive.
I don't think so. And this is when I brought it up to Frankie a long time ago, when after Khalil won against Anthony Smith, and he brought up, you know, he said that would be a good fight. Afterwards, you know, my boy Frankie was like, "Nah, bro." I was like, "Dude, I think it would be a good fight. I really do." And I think that it might happen, because if you look at what the UFC has done, and, you know, this again is referring to my previous video when I talked about Poatan ducking. I feel like the UFC has kind of steered him towards people who are a little bit more in his wheelhouse as far as like being strikers. And of course, that's more than likely going to change depending on what happens with Ankalaev. So I felt like because of that and because of what's going on in the top 5, it just made sense for Khalil to step in there. And I thought it would be exciting. And that's exactly what he gave us. But he lost. However, I think that still makes the division very, very interesting, because now him fighting Jamal Hill is a lot more interesting. Now, how do you think that fight goes now that you've seen what Khalil can do?
So I think for anybody watching, like, everybody's going to be excited for Jamal. I think the question is going to be, how does Rountree come back after taking all that damage he did? Because, I mean, he took a lot.
He did.
And, you know, that's going to affect him going forward. I think the striking matchup with him and Jamal Hill is going to be.
Yes.
Got two southpaw strikers. I think Rountree is going to use his kicks a little more in that fight than he did with Alex, but I think that's a can't miss.
Yeah. Yeah. I think honestly, that's the one I want to see. Like, I know that people have talked about Yuri and Jamal, but I think I'd rather see Jamal and Rountree. I think Yuri needs to take a little break, go, you know, climb some trees or something, whatever you do.
Yeah. Yeah. Work on some defense, get your hand.
Bruh, his defense is absolute shit. Can't keep blocking these punches with your face.
Actually got it. I actually have another guy in the division I think would be another fun fight for Alex. Not modern man. Even though I know that's Alex is the fight, I totally on board. Alex Carlos over would be
It would be
very enjoyable. It's gonna be a lot of striking, which definitely looking forward to. Hopefully, you know, if things play out at the live history Rockets, which isn't a guarantee.
It isn't.
And then we'll have a matchup that everybody's saying Alex been avoided. Then we'll see. Then we'll finally get the hell.
Everybody say that because that's what's happening. But you know,
Come on, now Alex is taking all these fights on short notice. The man isn't afraid this fight.
he ain't afraid. He ain't afraid. No, I wouldn't say he's afraid. I say he's delaying. You know what I'm saying?
Possibly, but then what's the argument gonna be? Let's say that fight after that Alex won. Well, it's just gonna be something.
Of course,
Don't move again.
It always is for the greats. That's what happens. I mean, John Jones is experiencing that now. If he sticks around and fights Tom Aspinall and beats him, then what? Well, now you got to fight Alex, you know, and then he beats him. It's like, okay, Sergey had a couple wins. It's always going to be something. So it'll be the same thing. Alex is, to me, and I really need to think this out before I throw this out here, but I'm going to throw it out here anyway. I do have him in my top 15 all time now. I think I have him in my top 15. I think.
What will Lion do in that tree?
A lot will depend on how Uncle Live comes out and chooses to fight. But if he grapples and Alex negates the grappling, then that's another check for him. Because, you know, like I said, like my whole thing is I want to see you tested in all different areas. I already know you're a world champion kickboxer. I know you're a Hall of Fame kickboxer. So let me see something else if we in mixed martial arts. You know what I'm saying? I gave you, okay, let's say you got Justin Fields, right? And he's playing in the league, and the league just lets him run. Like, they never check him and make him throw from the pocket. And they're like, oh, he's a great quarterback. I'm like, you know, I got to see him throw from the pocket. And it's the same thought process. Like, I want to see those different parts of your game. I think the kid can do it. I mean, he's been training it. He's been with Glover for forever. I think he can do it. I want to see you do it.
My rebuttal to that, I will insert one remark. You never got to see like him develop all of this striking. It's just like, hey, it's my game plan. This is what I'm going to do. Who you are, what you're trying. I'm going to worry about me and what I need. Minute on. Wait, I think something can be said if like you can implement your specialty on whomever it is and get the better of them. Yeah, you may not have the development of skills in all these different areas, but if you still get your hair right and you're beating everybody your game, you're still a better guy. In my opinion.
No, it's not. That's not a bad opinion. I think my thing, even with Khabib, who I also don't have in my top 10, I think with Khabib, he was able to use that two strike. Like, that's the way that he was able to drop Conor, somebody who is a far better striker. But because of the threat of the takedown, he was able to, you know, get that knockdown. And, you know, he did those various things throughout his rise. Like, I feel like he used it. He wasn't as good at it, but he used it. With Alex, he don't use it. Now, he don't need it. He don't need it. But I want to see somebody make him use it, or at least defensively. Like, let's see what he can do before I start Because you know how it is at this echelon of things, like now we're splitting hairs because all of them are great. You know, I could go to the back end of it in Ronda Rousey. She's great, but she's a shit striker. But she was able to implement her game plan and do whatever she wanted to do on her rise until she met somebody that stopped it. Holly Holm was like, no, I'm not going to do that. And that's it. So I feel like for Alex, for him to get on the left side of the splitting hairs that I have, I want to see that. And then he'll start to move up. But there's no question. Like he's a Hall of Famer in 2 different sports, even though he's doing the same thing in both sports.
Bro, what's he think about Alex? The man's got second most titles allegedly already in a year.
Yeah.
And then not even a year, 7.
Yeah.
And I think like the same amount of title pins Poirier is since out. Like it's crazy. The fact he's doing this speed, even if like people aren't fans of like him, the fighter, his accomplishment have to take together.
Absolutely. Like, even though I do pick against him often, like I still think he's great. I still think he's amazing. And I still have a sort of, or not even a sort of, I have reverence for him. It's different from people whom I just flat out don't like, like Ian Gary, Colby Covington, Julianna Peña, people like that I don't like them. Alex, he's just so likable. Like, how can you not like this dude? But Khalil Rountree is very much the same. Like, the way that he acted in a loss and the fact that they gave him a standing ovation.
Bro, he earned everything.
Yeah.
Like the way he did, crazy.
Yeah. So thinking about we were coming off of an event that was spectacular. Really, I think it was spectacular in the sense of our expectations were here and this is what we got. So now we got a card in Apex. It's coming up with Tatsura Taira against Brandon Royval. I like that fight. That is the only ranked fight. There's only 2 ranked people on this card, and those are the 2. Everybody else on the card is unranked fighters. Do you think that the UFC could have just sprinkled these people around the other cards instead of having a card this week?
To answer your question, yeah, they could have. However, I'm not complaining because I don't mind like going through all this to get the UFC 308 is amazing. It stays together as best as it possibly can. Like I understand some of these cards, these little Apex Fight Night cards, in between number card, kind of like, we got to deal with some stuff before we get to what we want to get to. I ain't gonna watch regardless.
I ain't got no choice. I have no choice. UFC is my life. I have no choice. I'm going to watch it. Like, when I was looking at it, I was thinking of, things that we could talk about. And I looked at it, I was like, I don't want to talk about any of this stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's just a sad grouping of people on this card that, I mean, obviously, I haven't seen anything from the community, the MMA community, but I have a feeling they're going to talk shit about this card.
I can see it. No real surprise. I think once, I know the Apex about to go on. They go on the road and they're in all these different cities. I don't think it will be quite as bad. I think the better job of like sprinkling the stuff in here and fight nights a little more balanced.
So as far as like the fight nights versus having them in the Apex and on the road, do you think that all of the fight nights should be on the road and maybe just the Dana White Contender Series and the Ultimate Fighter should be in the Apex?
I like that. Cause I mean, think about it. When they go on the road and they go to these cities don't get these events on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Everywhere you go, it's going to be sold out. Everybody's going to be excited there, regardless of who's on. I definitely think it's going to be very eye-opening when the Apex is under construction and they're on the road and they see all the love they get at all these different cities that to.
Yeah, because I mean, they sell out everywhere they go. And I know he mentioned it, by he, I'm talking about Dana. He mentioned about hitting the road again. And I mean, just the fact that they've done well in like Charlottesville, Austin, which is not a massive city. They got a lot of people with a lot of money though. but the fact that they've done good in some of these smaller markets, like that's to me, that lets them know that they can pretty much go anywhere at this point. So I'm curious what they have planned, because I haven't seen like everything for the fall, but I know, like you said, that the Apex is going under construction. So I'm curious where they're going to go, because they haven't really announced anything.
Hopefully it's somewhere I can go. But yeah, I'm gonna. Hopefully we get some good matchups, some fun matchups. I think the fight nights should be more so for like the young up and comer. They have their own stake, and they can like make a name for themselves. Like people can get a little bit of a vibe from the fight.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I think they do a decent job of getting people from whatever region it is or area to be a part of the card. Like if they do one in Austin again, like I imagine, an Adrian Yanez, CJ Vergara, people like that would show up. I mean, even Houston fighters, Kevin Holland, probably not Derek Lewis, he's too big, but a lot of people like that. I mean, that would be amazing. And I can definitely see him coming back to Austin soon, because it's really easy for them. Hopefully they do, because I would definitely go.
Man, and they've been to Austin like twice now. The cars have been putting.
Yeah, they have. Yeah, they have. Yeah. So speaking on something that happens in the Apex, obviously, if y'all don't know, he does a really cool stream for all the Dana White Contender Series stuff. And this is the last one that's coming up. And I think that this is probably the one that is supposed to be like the banger because of the aforementioned Alex Pereira. So we got, what's his name? Artem? Yes, Artem Vakitov. And like, it's kind of the same, the same path that Alex took, to where he came in and he already had a rival. Artem has a rivalry with Alex. Shoot, even Conor McGregor had a rival that came in with Joe Duffy. It didn't pan out. He didn't make it to him, but it was there. So I'm curious if they're going to try to fast track him the same way that they fast track Alex. If he goes in tomorrow and destroys this dude within a round, like, how do you think that they're going to handle him? Do you think it's going to be similar or what?
100%. You got to think about the division already. It's pretty shallow. Yeah, was. And I don't see why not. And UFC is a big money at the end of the day. Saying story, rivalry already there. It makes too much sense. They've already written this script before and it worked out perfect. Well, let's go dust it off. Go run it back again.
Yeah, it seems like an easy thing. So I'm curious how many fights it would take him to get to Alex. Like,
so it took Alex, 3 fights to get?
Yeah.
I think it would do something similar, but Barkitov would to be very active though, because Alex ain't gonna be around. So,
like, was he 37?
Yeah, somewhere around here. So I mean, the end is in sight, unfortunately, for the Koatov fans out there. But I'm looking forward to seeing this guy more.
Yeah. I think if he does his job impressively, like, that's a whole new situation that we're going to be talking about for sure. So I guess the last thing I'm going to ask you is about going back to 307. And I asked Leo Cooper about this. The Raquel Pennington, Julianna Peña fight. 1, how did you score that fight? And then 2, do you think that we are better off with Julianna Peña as the champion than Raquel Pennington?
So, first question, who I scored it for? I gave it to Raquel Pennington, 48-47. I gave her 1-4. Do I think Peña is better for the division? I do, just because she's the only person side of Kayla Harrison that can get any type of attention to the division. She can do anything on the mics, but I think her fighting style isn't the best. But Raquel had a chance to fight. Like she definitely did. I mean, she dropped a couple times, right? And I think when Raquel looks back at it, she's like, it was right there. Like it was right there. I even went back to rewatch the first round because I knew that's what it came down to. When you watch the first round, it's literally flipping a coin on who won the round. Like, it's so close for landing. It wasn't anything like substantial. And then on top of it, I think the uproar is just from the simple fact of like when we got to the end of that fight, it just felt like Raquel was at complete control. And we lost sight of the fact that Julianna Peña was in her back in the second and third.
True.
Almost trying to get a finish. So I think we lose sight of that sometimes. But like I said, I thought Rocky won it. Julianna.
Yeah, I thought Rocky won, and I was trying to be as impartial as possible in thinking that, but as scoring it throughout the card, I couldn't remember round 1 when I got to round 5, because there were so many big moments. You know, to your point, like that, Julianna did have her back, had a choke that was, I mean, it was a booty hair away from being in, you know what I'm saying? So, and then Rocky dropped her twice. And that's the thing with Rocky, like she had Mayra Bueno Silva hurt too. And when she has these girls hurt, she doesn't go for the kill. And I feel like that's just I don't know if that's a fighting IQ flaw, or it's her being too patient, or just not knowing when to pick her spots. But like, I feel like she could have finished both of these fights, and we would be talking about her a lot differently if she would have finished Mayra Bueno Silva and finished Julianna Peña. It would be a whole different conversation about her title reign. But now it's over, and I don't know what she does. I mean, she could fight her way back to it's a shallow division. She could fight her way back to the title. But obviously we know who's going to fight for it next. So, in speaking of Kayla, what did you think about her performance?
So I definitely did not think it was one of her best showing. But to me, she looks like she's still thinking or still on the feet, and she's just trying to like feel her way through it, where she can get to the clinch, get up against, and that's her comfort zone. She's like, okay, know what to do when I get here. I'm gonna get it to the ground some kind of way, and now I can.
Yeah.
But I think if the fight with her and Julianna's gonna give her some trouble on the feet with that jab.
Mm-hmm.
Too, it's Kayla's out. With that being said, though, they go out. Julianna's no slouch.
She's not.
Kayla would definitely have a strength advantage, that's for sure. But I mean, I think Kayla definitely got to get back in the gym and work on the craft.
Absolutely. I think that for me, and I was saying this earlier with Leo, I feel like her stock went down just a little bit. Not in the sense that I think that she's terrible. It's just the gap between her and the other girls, to me, got a little bit closer, because now I can see a path to victory for other people. I do think that Julianna is better suited to fight her than Raquel would have been. Raquel would have just got taken down, and if Julianna can take you down and hold you down, Kayla can definitely take you down and hold you down. I think that Raquel is obviously a better striker than Julianna, but Julianna's got this weird, sneaky, I don't even know how she's landing shots. It's weird. It doesn't make sense, but she lands them. So I think the build up is going to be far more entertaining than the fight itself. But I don't know if Kayla finishes her at this point. I think she beats her, but I have to really think about it. Like, is she going to finish her? Because the one thing that I can say about Julianna is she's tough. She don't give up for nothing. So I don't know. It's an interesting fight. I'm curious where they're going to put it. I think it would be dope if they did it in Chicago, to be honest. I think that would be an amazing place for it. They haven't had a UFC event in a while, but Kayla's going to be there.
Definitely, but I will tell you this, though. Kayla, that last fight at 307 with Kayla, like, I felt like the odds were probably way wider. And after that, the odds are probably going to be a lot higher.
Absolutely. I definitely think.
Because think about it, the one tough fight we've ever seen Kayla Harrison in.
Yeah.
Julianna Peña in court.
Yeah.
Okay, but whether you beating her up, she's losing, she's not going away. She's going to be there regardless what you may think, what you may feel about it.
Yeah.
She isn't going.
Mm-hmm. Yep. She's got the right teammate. Bilal goes through the same stuff that she goes through. as far as the way that people feel about him. And so they got the same mindset. And unfortunately, we're going to have to get that fight. So last one I'll ask you about. So Stephen Wonderboy Thompson got finished by Joaquin Buckley. So, which is interesting. I didn't think that he would get finished as far as striking is concerned. I thought that he was going to get held down a little bit, which the part of that did actually happen. But I mean, he threw a Hail Mary that landed. I mean, with that rising hook, like straight out of Mike Tyson's Punch Out. He looked like Little Mac doing that.
It reminded me of that Gaethje landed.
Yeah. When Barbosa was trying to escape the pocket, caught him, and then Barbosa fell back. He had a question. Yeah. So how do you feel about Joaquin Buckley after that beating I mean, he's older, but Wonderboy is still good.
And I think it was very good for Joaquin Buckley to start to get a finish on Wonderboy. Because I mean, you haven't been finished by that many people. I think
Pettis knocked him out, and that was his first time being knocked out.
And then on top of it, I think this is going to be a little stray board for Buckley. Like, I know he called out Kamara. He hit that call. Even though I was kind of leaning towards losing, like maybe fighting like Ian Gary or JM, somebody like that. But Buckley, I mean, he going to be up there now.
Yeah.
We'll see what the rankings are tomorrow. But I mean, I like it. It's a good next step for him.
It's so funny because Joaquin Buckley's previous arch nemesis is Kevin Holland, and he's doing exactly what I thought Kevin Holland was going to do when he dropped down to welterweight. But Joaquin Buckley is actually doing it. This should put him around, I don't know, 8, 7, 6, somewhere in that neighborhood. I love the call out. I loved the call out. Like that fight makes total sense, because if Kamaru beats Buckley, then that lets them know, like literally he could beat Buckley and then go right in for a belt. That's really all he needs to do. And then Buckley, if he beats Kamaru, which that is so odd to say, but it would be true. And even though if you match up Buckley with Shavkat, like I think Shavkat takes his lunch money. But if you match him up with Bilal, I think it's a closer fight than people might think.
I know. I think shifting gears a little bit and go on the Wonderboy. I think now the time we get the Wonderboy can.
Yes. Yes.
The time.
Yes.
No, they're both coming out lawsuit. It's not like Wonderboy's KO was some super brutal knockout. Like he was pretty quickly. And I know MVP just had his loss at the middle.
Yeah.
So I think that's the fight that has to happen. I know every fan want to see that matchup.
Yep.
And I know MVP was saying he could see it there at a slower pace, maybe even a bar fight. I would love to see that.
Yes. I would, like, immediately once that fight ended, people were talking about, is this it for Wonderboy? Are we going to see the gloves? And I was like, nah, he's got that fight left. And I think that that's the fight to make at this point. I think that's the perfect fight to make. Press this thing, bro. Yeah, I think that's a perfect fight to make. And he can retire after that if he wants. I mean, I think that he said that he still feels good. He still feels fresh. He doesn't feel old. I mean, he didn't look slow to me in that fight. Buckley just implemented his game plan, and he just lost. And I think that's okay. That doesn't mean that you're done. But one more question on this event, and we can end it here. But Kevin Holland, so he loses, but he had a rib injury. But I will say, in the small amount of time, he didn't do anything that made me think that I wasn't impressed necessarily by that little time period. What do you think he does from here? Obviously he's got to heal up, get his rib right. But does he try to attempt to run that back with Roman Dolidze, or look for something else?
I think Kevin needs to go back to welterweight and stay at welterweight. I think his frame suits him better there. And I think, like, when guys take him, I know they were talking about it on the commentary. When he gets taken down at 185, like he looks like doesn't really have a chance to like scramble, get up, do anything. It kind of just looks like he's just down there and he's just gonna be stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of it, you got some other strikers at 170 that are having success. That would be why he couldn't either.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's a discipline situation for him?
I mean, from the outside looking in, I know that was just the purely conjecture.
Yeah.
Like to question people's work ethic without like scared to know it for myself. Because I mean, these dudes go through a lot to train and get in there and flirt on the line. It might just be, like a middle thing as far as like locking in on that and getting the right mental space. Because when you're at that level, man, there's so many different things that go into it that a lot of people like lose sight of. Let's say, for instance, like something happened this week and now it throws you all off, and now you're just a little bit. I think all these guys, I'm admitting it, everybody you go in there with is chill. You can't be out of line or something's off. Like you got to be able to find that way to lock in and be able to perform.
Yeah, it's true. Like there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to a fight camp. So many different people that they have to depend on, from their meals to, getting their schedule right, whoever they have handling their business, like, and then all at the same time, they got to mentally prepare to fight another man who wants to take everything from you while everybody that is watching. And that's man or woman. Like that's tough. That's very, very difficult.
You got to deal with that injury, sick, and like, life is going to throw its things. Actually, you still got to be on that tape. You got to perform, and nobody's.
Yeah. It's tough. You pay the cost to be the boss. That's what DP says. Cool. Well, man, I appreciate you coming through.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we got a chance to do it.